Hey everybody, welcome back to Beatles News Roundup here on Vinyl Rewind. This is the monthly series where we recap the latest Beatles news stories from the past month, with this episode covering May 2025. And today we got a lot of news to cover, including a big news story about a re-release that fans have been asking for over 10 years now. So stick around to the end to learn more. But first we have a word from today's sponsor, Art of Records. By now, I'm sure you've seen how I display the records above me, but have you ever wondered where you can get your own? These fantastic display cases are called Clear Case, and they're made by my good friend over at Art of Records. What I love about these cases are their versatility and ability to swap albums quickly. Other record display frames are cumbersome to change, and none of them offer the ability to easily display just a vinyl record by itself in the same frame. The included spindle adapter lets you display your favorite vinyl variant right next to the album cover, and you can quickly remove the front cover of the clear case to play your record. All you gotta do is apply a little bit of outward pressure on these two tabs, remove the frame, and you're good to go. These are also oversized, so they'll fit albums with gatefold sleeves. In fact, I almost never come across a record that can't fit inside a clear case. And each clear case comes with everything you need to mount them to your walls. The back display panel comes in a choice of 3 colors: black, white, or translucent. You can buy them individually or grab a pack of 4 and save $20. And right now you can save even more by using the promo code REWIND for 15% off. That's right, just use the code REWIND at checkout to save 15%. Just head over to artofrecords.com to place your order. Okay, we're gonna start with a big update on the new Beatles biopics. Recently, Deadline announced who will be writing the 4 films. 3 screenwriters have been hired, and they are Jack Thorne, who is a BAFTA and Tony Award winner. His credits include Adolescence, Enola Holmes, and the play Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. Jez Butterworth is also a Tony Award winner, who wrote the film Spectre, Black Mass, and Edge of Tomorrow, which I love. And finally, there's Oscar winner Peter Strohan, who wrote Conclave and also co-wrote Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. It seems like these guys are more than up to the challenge of distilling the Beatles' career and life into 4 films, but I do find it interesting that there's only 3 writers for 4 films. I'm not sure how that's gonna work. And I seem to recall an early report that said producer and director Sam Mendes was going to keep each writer separated from each other so that none of them know what the others are writing. I'm not sure if that's still the case. I thought it was going to be 1 writer per film. So maybe there's a 4th writer that hasn't been announced yet, which we'll find out. Time will tell, of course. And in more Beatles movie news, actor Barry Keoghan is hard at work for his portrayal of Ringo Starr. At a recent film festival, the actor revealed that he's been at what he calls an acting boot camp for the last 16 or 17 weeks, working on capturing Ringo's essence. He said, "For Ringo, you get to approach the walk, the accent, play around with the face. It's a place of failing, a place of learning and trying. It's a playground for me." He also added that he's been practicing the drums for the past 6 or 7 months, and he's got blisters on his hands to prove it. He also added that he expects filming to last for 15 months. Also, he was on Jimmy Kimmel Live earlier in May, and he talked about meeting Ringo at his house. Check it out.
One of those moments where you're just in awe and you just froze, and yeah, it was just...
I bet you have a lot of those moments, don't you?
Right now.
Were you watching Ringo to see what you could absorb?
Yeah, I was, and I said it to him. And when I was talking to him, I couldn't look at him. I was nervous, like right now. But he's like, you can look at me. And it was just sort of, again, you're playing Ringo Starr. It's my job is to observe and take in little kind of mannerisms and, study and... But I wanted to know, I want to bring forward I want to humanize it and bring feelings to it and, not just sort of imitate.
In other Beatles movie news, we have a new Beatles casting rumor. This time, Film Updates on the old Twitter is reporting that Anna Sawai will play Yoko Ono, Mia McKenna Bruce as Maureen Starkley, and as I reported last month, Amy Lou Wood as Patty Boyd. No source is named, so take these with a grain of salt, but it does make me wonder who will play Cynthia and Linda. In other Beatles movie news, there is a new documentary that premiered in Tucson, Arizona back in April of this year, and it's about the life and times of Chris O'Dell. Now, if that name is not familiar, don't fret because she's not very well known, but you may be surprised to learn that George Harrison wrote a song about her. It's called Miss O'Dell, and it's on the flip side of his single for Give Me Love, Give Me Peace on Earth. So the story goes, back in 1968, when the Beatles were forming Apple Corps, their press officer Derek Taylor was in Los Angeles Chris, and one of Chris O'Dell's friends knew him, and they ended up talking with one another, and they really hit it off. Derek offered Chris a job as a personal assistant at the new Apple offices in London, and she accepted. During her time with the company, she was there for the recordings of the White Album, Let It Be, and Abbey Road, and she can even be seen in the Get Back documentary. She worked there for 2 years before eventually moving back to Los Angeles in 1972. There she started working for the Rolling Stones, helping out during their sessions for Exile on Main Street, and she can even be seen on the back of the album cover. She eventually worked with Bob Dylan and even wrote a song with Pattie Boyd. She claims that she is JoJo in the song Get Back. I don't know if any of the Beatles have substantiated that claim, but she is from Tucson and she was friends with the group, so you never know. I haven't seen the documentary yet, but I would imagine it's pretty entertaining since she's led a really interesting life, and it features interviews with her as well as Pattie Boyd, Peter Asher, and other notable people. The film is now available on streaming platforms as well as to purchase on DVD or Blu-ray. Head over to their website to learn more. In other Beatles news, May 27th would have been Mal Evans' 90th birthday, and the Liverpool Beatles Museum celebrated with a new display in his honor. The centerpiece of the display is Mal's signet ring, which he received as a gift on his 21st birthday. He apparently lost it to Neil Aspinall during a poker game in 1964 when they were in Paris for some of the concerts at the Olympic Theater. Also on display is a portrait painted by artist Dave Miles. If you plan on going to the museum, it's open 7 days a week and general admission is £20 with discounts given for families, children, students, and seniors. Head over to liverpoolmuseum.com for more info. And in Beatles Auction news, Julian Lennon is letting go of a ton of his personal items. Some of the highlights include gold record award plaques, animation cells from Yellow Submarine, and photos. But maybe the most fascinating item is a page of typed lyrics for the song Your Blues with some handwritten lyric corrections by his dad. It's interesting to see that he changed the lyric of So Insecure Now to Suicidal. However, the page didn't sell, but a ton of other items went for big money. Within the same auction, there were also other Beatles items for sale, including posters, vinyl, but the craziest thing might be 2 pairs of seats from Shea Stadium that sold for $6,500. Head over to Julian's Auctions to see it all for yourself. In Paul McCartney news, Variety revealed the voice cast for his upcoming animated feature film titled High in the Clouds, and the roster is impressive. Among the many stars include Celine Dion, Lionel Richie, and Ringo. The movie is based on a 2005 children's book written by Paul McCartney. The movie tells the story of the power of family and freedom of expression through music. High in the Clouds follows Whirl, a teenage squirrel who embarks on an extraordinary journey to set music free after accidentally sparking a revolution against Gretsch, the bossy diva owl who has banned all music from his town. It'll feature original music by Paul and a score by Oscar winner Michael Giacchino. The film is set to be released in 2027. In other Paul news, over on his website, he revealed more details about the upcoming book on his band Wings, including what the cover will look like. There will be 2 versions available, one for the UK and one for the US. Personally, I like the UK edition way more, as the US one is very busy to me. There's a lot of details going on, but they all seem to get lost in that blue color. But you can't judge a book by its cover, right? Other details revealed include Paul writing the foreword for the book, as well as the book was compiled from over 42 hours of new interviews and newly discovered ones previously unheard from Paul's personal archive. So that all sounds really exciting. I can't wait to check this one out. And more Paul news, his duet with Barbra Streisand was released. They sang his 2012 original composition called My Valentine, and over on his website he answered a question asking what was it like working with her, and he said the experience was nerve-wracking, nail-biting. I did this session with her in LA and I was pretty terrified. Kind of crazy to think of Paul being nervous, but he did have his work cut out for him. Not only did he have to sing in her key, they recorded it at Sony Studios in the Barbra Streisand soundstage with a full orchestra. In the end, I think the song turned out really well and his voice sounds great. The song is part of her upcoming Duets album, which will be released on June 27th, and it will feature her singing with a ton of other stars, including Sting, Seal, Bob Dylan, Sam Smith, James Taylor, Mariah Carey, and Ariana Grande. In George Harrison news, a guitar he once played and wrote songs on is up for sale for nearly $1 million. The 1913 Gibson Style O acoustic archtop, affectionately known as Patty, once belonged to Eric Clapton, and together in 1968 they wrote the song Badge using this guitar. And it's rather rare and beautiful on its own, so I could see it going for a lot of money without the rock star connection. However, I think the asking price is a little too high, maybe even way too high. In fact, it was sold twice on Julian's auctions within the last 15 years. And, both times it went for less money. I will say that in both of those auctions, it did not mention the historical connection to George Harrison. And someone definitely did a lot of digging and research to find out more history of it. So, obviously it's worth more because of that. However, again, $1 million for a guitar that he may have wrote a famous song on, I don't know, I think it's asking a lot. Regardless, I think this will sell, maybe not for the asking price, but I hope whoever gets it will cherish it and preserve it. Ultimately, I'd love to see it be used for more recordings, but that probably won't happen since it will be far too valuable. In other George news, late last month, his official website made the announcement that his 2009 Greatest Hits compilation will be available on vinyl for the first time. The 2 LP set will be released on July 11th and will feature 19 tracks spanning his solo career, but it also includes his rendition of 3 Beatles songs from the Grammy-winning album, The Concert for Bangladesh. I should also mention that the compilation only represents about half of his solo material. There are 6 albums, including his first 2 releases, that aren't represented. In fact, it excludes several of his top 40 hits for whatever reason. That being said, I still think this is a pretty good collection of his music. Pre-orders are live now, and the set retails for around $60 US before tax and shipping. No word yet on any sort of exclusive vinyl variants. As of now, it's only available on standard black vinyl. And do you remember that guy who bought George Harrison's leftover toast not too long ago? I mean, supposedly it was, who knows? Well, he's back in the news again, this time selling some underpants for nearly £2,000. Joseph Robert O'Donnell is letting go of a rather unique piece of Beatles memorabilia that was once for sale at the Beatles' short-lived Apple Boutique on Baker Street in London. The boutique was first opened in 1967 and sold a variety of items, including clothing, furniture, and art. It was part of the Beatles' larger business plan of creative diversification, which would go on to include their record label, a film and TV production house, and more. The underwear were designed by the artist collective called The Fool, who also designed the inner sleeve for Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. The underpants feature an Apple logo on the front and back. They appear to be unworn, thankfully, and come with the original tag that has since become detached from over the years. I personally like the design, but I think the price is a little too high. Maybe for £200, that might be more reasonable. In Ringo news, he announced a new tour with his all-star band for this fall. It begins on September 10th in Chicago and closes with a 6-night residency at the Venetian in Las Vegas. You can also catch him live this June. Check out his site for more info. In Ringo-related news, his son Zak was fired again from The Who. Just last month, I reported on the whole fiasco. You can check out that clip here. But the long and short of it is that after 29 years of playing with The Who, Roger Daltrey got annoyed with the way Zak was drumming one night on stage, and he was fired from the band. Then, just days later, Pete Townsend said that clearer heads prevailed and that Zak was back in the band. And now this month, The Who says that he's out of the band for good. Zak posted on Instagram that he and Roger talked on the phone, and Roger said that they retired him so that Zak could go on and focus on his own projects. Definitely feels like they were letting him down easy. Zak went on to say that he remained on good terms with the band and that they are great friends, as we have always been. It was also reported that when Zak was let go for real this time, he reached out to Noel and Liam Gallagher to see if he could drum for them during their upcoming Oasis reunion shows, and they replied that they were happy with their current drummer. I'm sure Zak will land on his feet, but man, that's gotta be tough to go through all this so publicly. In John Lennon news, the hotel where he and Yoko stayed in the summer of 1969 is set to be torn down. The band was on a break from recording what would become Abbey Road, and he wanted to take Yoko on a tour of the UK, showing places that were special to him, and they were passing through this seaside town in Wales on their way to Liverpool. They booked out the 2 top floors of the Corbett Arms for privacy reasons. In the years since, the hotel has fell into disrepair, and it's been vacant for at least a decade, and now the city has posted listed numerous fixes that need to be completed, but nothing has been done, and now the building is starting to collapse. The hotel dates back to the early 1800s, and as much as the city would love to save it, it seems like it's just too costly at this point, and it needs to be torn down for public safety. In other John news, there is another documentary about him in the works. Deadline reports that director Steven Soderbergh is currently shopping around for a distributor for a documentary that's currently in production. Details are very limited at this point, but we do know that the new film will center on the last interview John gave just hours before he was murdered. This is not Soderbergh's first documentary, but will be interesting to see what direction he'll take and how it will be presented. And in Beatles merch news, the big announcement is the return of the mono box set on vinyl. This is incredible, especially for those of you who have been wanting this box set but missed out when it was originally released in 2014. I was lucky enough to pick one up back then. This reissue of the mono box set appears to be identical to the original release based on the description on the official Beatles store. The vinyl was cut using an all-analog signal path and pressed at Optimal in Germany. The set also includes the excellent 3 LP compilation titled The Mono Masters, as well as a hardcover book. The box set went up for early access pre-order for folks who subscribed to the newsletter, and within hours it sold out. Then it was available again before again selling out for a second time. I'll be honest, it's kind of strange the rollout for this. It feels very haphazard. There was virtually no lead up to this, and initially they limited the set to 4 per customer, and now I see that it's changed to 2 per customer, and already the pre-orders are being flipped on eBay. My hope is that when these start to ship on July 18th, we'll start to see these be available for purchase again, similar to what happened to the colored vinyl versions of the red and blue compilations from last year. The box set retails for $545 before tax and shipping, that's US dollars. One thing I do find interesting is that when the mono campaign was released originally in 2014, all of the albums were available separately. That does not appear to be the case this time around, but anything's possible. If you missed out on the first time, and you get the opportunity to buy it at retail, don't sleep on this. Get it now, because who knows if and when they'll ever re-release this for a third time. So yeah, I'm a bit conflicted because as much as this is awesome news, the way this was rolled out means that a lot of scalpers took copies away from folks who missed out the first time around, and that is not cool in my book. Also on the Beatles web store, you can pre-order the 25th anniversary reissue of the anthology book. No details yet on how it's different from the original release, but the price is $50 before tax and shipping. The release date is set for October 14th of this year. In other merch news, you can buy some Nightmare Fuel over at Rockaway Records here in LA. They are selling a complete set of 4 soft-body Remco Beatles dolls in their original boxes, and they are something else, man, I'll tell you that. None of them look great, but they did Ringo dirty. You can pick them up for only $475. And this past month in Beatles history, back in 1966 on May 19th and 20th, the Beatles filmed what we now call music videos for their new single Paperback Writer and the B-side Rain. These films were directed by Michael Lindsay Hogg, who would go on to create the Let It Be documentary, and of course all that footage which Peter Jackson then turned into the incredible Get Back documentary series. But back in 1966 on May 19th, they filmed at EMI Studios. This is also where they got some great behind the scenes photos. You can actually see Paul looking at a transparency of their photo shoot back in March of the same year. This is when they shot the infamous Butcher cover photo. Also on May 19th is when the back cover photo for Revolver was taken, and both of these famous photos were shot by Robert Whittaker. Then on the next day, May 20th, they traveled to Chiswick House in West London, and they had a ton of fun in the gardens and conservatory. Both of these films were screened on the BBC One program Top of the Pops, and you can check out both of them on the official Beatles YouTube channel. All right, everybody, that will do it for this episode. If you want more Beatles videos, be sure to check out my video on the Beatles Butcher cover if you haven't already. In the video, I go into detail on the original intent behind the photo shoot and the subsequent recall by Capitol Records. Until then, thank you all so much for watching, but I especially want to thank my members over on Patreon. They help keep this channel going with their monthly support. I'm your Vinyl Geek, and I'll catch you on the flip side.